as entrepreneurs, we all want to make a difference, but the world changes, our world changes, and we have to adapt. In Silicon Valley, where I'm fortunate to be, we call it a pivot, and many of us are very familiar. I've got an entrepreneur and a good friend with us today who has just mastered the art of pivot. One unbelievable pivot and a lot of fine tuning along the way to become a very successful entrepreneur. And we're together in the Genius Network Mastermind Group. And I was just with Randy Hartnell, and I just wanted him to share his story with my good friends, our audience, and help you make a huge difference, because we're all faced with challenges along the way. And it's, many of us have been knocked down by more than 2x4s. And we're not judged by how we get knocked down, but how we get back up and really make a difference. And we have the opportunity to make a huge difference today. I'm John Bowen. This is AES Nation, all about accelerating your success. Stay tuned. You do not want to miss these lessons.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
So excited to have you here today. First of all, thank you very much.
Hi, John. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, and it was all I could do not to tell in the introduction your background and how you got to where you are, because you have done a massive pivot and you're very successful at both, but the world changes along the way. And and you and I have known each other for a number of years, and we've shared, and helped each other. I want to share you with our audience now. But before I go into some of the life lessons that you've shared with me and taught me, I want you to give a little bit of background so they have a framing. So tell me kind of how you got started in all this. I always joked that, we don't wake up at age 5, at least most of us. There were a few that I've interviewed in over 200 podcasts that said, yeah, I did wake up at age 5 and I was going to do this business, but most of us didn't. But tell us kind of how you evolved into having this, really exceptional, business that's helping so many people stay healthy.
Well, thanks, John. Be happy to share that story. I guess it started when I was going to school. I was in college at Berkeley pursuing an English degree, and I had intended to go to law school after I got my English degree. And along the way, I needed to find a way to make some money in the summers, and managed to land a job on a fishing boat up in Alaska. And so I started going up there in the summers, and it was great physical work. You're out in nature, you're off the grid, and really fell in love with it. So when I graduated with my English degree, rather than go to law school, I decided to become a full-time fisherman.
Well, that is required, right? An English degree for fishing in Alaska. I always think of The Deadliest Catch watching that show, and I'm not sure that I've seen too many English majors on it, Randy.
Well, I like to tell people that there are actually quite a few college graduates that get crab. They're not quite as colorful as some of the people that get chosen for that show. But anyway, I fell in love with it. It was you're working out in nature. It's physical. It's really the last of the hunter and gather occupations. You're actually hunting these fish, and it's very competitive. It's primal. You're sort of feeding your tribe, and it's just really unusual. And I would go up in the summertime when the salmon were running, and so it wasn't like you see on Deadliest Catch where we were out in the ice and the snow and the giant waves. It was relatively humane fishery. So loved doing that. I bought a boat and then a couple more boats, and I had different crews. I had boats specialized for different fisheries, do herring and salmon, and was doing that for, like I said, close to 20 years, and probably would still be doing it, except along about now 18, 20 years ago, farmed salmon started to explode on world markets. And over the course of a relatively short time, just a couple of years, our price collapsed. we had been a little arrogant, I think, as maybe a lot of people can be when they think they've got a good thing going, and they kind of forget about the competition. And we felt that, our wild salmon were so superior to the farm salmon that were out there. There was no way anybody would, want those more than ours. But they had they had a lot of advantages. They were cheaper. They were available 365 days a year. They could be delivered fresh. Nobody really knew the difference between farmed and wild salmon, significant environmental differences, nutritional differences. So in a very short time, all of a sudden our prices started collapsing. And at the end, we held on as long as we could.
Randy, how far did they go down? I mean, I'm trying to remember the time frame of this.
We were getting 40 cents a pound for these beautiful wild sockeye salmon that, are probably the most nutrient dense.
It's my favorite fish in the world too.
It's just incredible, the value. And I didn't really at that time even understand what a nutritional powerhouse they were. I mean, they are the ultimate superfood. I can explain that more later. But anyway, the bottom line was they didn't want to pay us much for them, basically bread and water.
What? So did it go down by?
It went down to about 40 cents a pound.
Okay, what was the high point?
I think 4 to 5 times that. 400 or 500.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, enough that everybody noticed it.
Yeah, imagine if all of a sudden your income went to 20% of what you've been making. No. Less.
I pivoted at about 60%, and that's that's a big one.
Quickly, and the thing that made it especially difficult is that was about the time the internet bubble exploded, and just a lot of difficult things going on about that time. It kind of came together, and I knew when I got to the end of the season and didn't have enough to pay my crew that I needed to start looking for something else to do.
So how did you, and I'm going to just flash the website here. I mean, you've got one of the most successful, seafood, wild seafood and organic on the internet. I mean, you probably couldn't have imagined at the time. The internet's just starting, your business is collapsing where you are. But how did you make that pivot? I mean, you got knocked down, so you had to do something. But
I had a friend at the time. We were all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure out what the hell are we going to do here. And he called me up and invited me out to dinner one night. And he said, "Randy, I think I've got a tiger by the tail. I've been taking some of my fish around to supermarkets around the country and setting up a barbecue and barbecuing and telling a story to the people coming to the store and then selling the fish in the store. And when they learn the differences between our salmon and the farm salmon, they totally want ours, and they're willing to pay for it. And the problem is that most stores only have farm salmon. So that was really a boost. It made me realize that once people got the message, once they learned the difference, that they wanted what we had. They just couldn't get it. And I occasionally would have people contact me and say, "Randy, I want wild salmon. Where can I find it?" And eventually I told this one woman who was especially persistent that, I can send you some. And then along about that time, I happened to catch an Omaha Steaks commercial on TV. I think I was up late one night trying to figure out how the hell I was going to pay our bills. And saw this Omaha Steaks infomercial. I later found that they were selling like $80 million worth of this red meat that you could buy at any grocery store on the internet. And whereas we had this incredibly healthy, sustainable wild salmon that you couldn't find anywhere at the time, and I had access to lots of it, I had a lot of knowledge about it, and so all of that came together to where I kind of had this light bulb moment that maybe I could ship my wild salmon through the mail to people like Omaha Steaks does. So we really built the company based on that model, and it continues till today.
Well, and there's so many lessons in that. I think I'm going to go to one real quick. Just the power of story that I'm with a lot of fellow CEOs going out to dinner a lot, and I know if there's salmon on the menu, everybody asks whether it's farm raised or it's wild now, and it's amazing that transition where nobody cared. Where now, if it's not wild, they won't order it or they won't buy it. I don't go to grocery stores. I've got fortunately a great wife does, but that's it is the power of, because why would most people know the difference? And they wouldn't unless there was a powerful story to do it. So, I mean, it's just, all of these steps along the way are amazing.
Yeah, that's been one of our guiding principles and missions from the very beginning, was to educate people, for their benefit, for our benefit, for the benefit of the industry. Because one thing that people don't think about it, we have this saying, if you want to save wild salmon, you need to eat wild salmon. And what that means is you need to support the wild salmon industry, because that is the most powerful political voice for the salmon. And in contrast to that, if everybody had to get out of the fishing industry, the local people have to have alternative sources of income. And so if they can't make a living catching fish, they invite different industries in that are no friend to wild salmon. So for instance, mining, drilling, just resource extraction, hydroelectric dams, or just all tourism. In some places in Alaska, say Ketchikan, for example, which used to be a sort of ground zero for fishing in Southeast Alaska, when the fishing industry was on the verge of collapse during that time. They built a massive dock on the waterfront and started soliciting cruise ships. And I went up there a few years ago, and here were 5 giant cruise ships off the coast of off that dock, that little tiny fishing town.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's wonderful for people to go up there and to be able to experience that, but it's not really that great for the
it's not great for the environment. It's a delicate balance, because I had the opportunity to go fishing. I have a friend that has a home on the Kenai Peninsula, and my wife and I went out with him and had never caught a wild salmon at that point, and she immediately caught a 38-pound one. Unfortunately, I caught a 48-pound one, half an hour later. One. Yeah, and it was before they were letting you fish with live bait, so they only brought 2 in that day, and we got, 10 of them, and we got 2, and it's just, being that beautiful setting and pristine, and just, flying in, it's just spectacular, and you want to preserve that. And there's nothing like eating on the back deck salmon, at that. So it's just amazing. And it leads me to kind of the first, I want to go over a number of lessons you and I were talking about. And one is, be passionate about something you really care about. And I know you care about this, but, give us kind of, as we're coaching our fellow entrepreneurs, sharing life lessons, Randy, why is that so important in building your business?
Well, I think the ideal is to have one of those jobs that doesn't feel like work. And if you're doing something you love, and I think oftentimes it has a lot to do with helping other people. You're making other people's lives better, whether it's through financial services or food or countless other ways. It's just something that feeds you. And I have a doctor friend, very well known pediatrician. And he has this term called the helper's high, that when you help somebody, especially in a really important fundamental way, like their financial security or their health through better food or whatever, I think there's a dopamine rush that you get there, and it's just very gratifying. And there's nothing better to be addicted to than helping others. So, and I've just been fortunate to fall into this profession and when I was a fisherman, I didn't really know much about the nutritional quality of seafood, but I've learned so much and realized that it's really, if there's such thing as a silver bullet in the way of food, seafood it's got to be close to it. So.
Well, one of the things I want to go back to, we'll do a little later. I want to go to your website, because one of the things you have shared, and you've shared with me, we've had some health challenges in our family situation, just showing research on how you can improve it and how you can make a difference with your diet. And this is one of the things somebody told me, be passionate about your business, and they had a little different thing. They said, just if you're not passionate, business beats you down a bit, and you'll give up. And it's that persistency, because you're passionate, you love it, and you get the high, as you're saying, Randy. I mean, there is such a high from helping people making a difference in this world that, very few people get. I mean, this is one of the best things about being an entrepreneur. But, you and I have had this conversation many times before, is the importance of having the right team, surrounding yourself by people, smarter than you, A players versus every once in a while you'll see, no, you should hire B or C. But, share your thoughts on this.
I think it was Steve Jobs and probably others that said that a single A player can run circles around a team of B and C players. And I just have found that to be very true. And it's not only that a player can deliver a lot more, they like to work with other A players. So when we finally figured this out and realized that we had to upgrade certain parts of our team, we went out and found one of these A players. And it's just incredible, how much more he was doing than his predecessor. And he also, has a network of other A players that he can draw upon to help us with different projects that he can recruit into the company if that's appropriate. It's just some of the best money we've ever spent.
No, and I totally agree. I've always tried to do that. At occasion, actually, I've hired B players and lived to regret it. Oftentimes you have to do multiple B players and then you're telling them what to do. A players just make a difference. I was just thinking, my next door neighbor, I was reading the book, Steve Jobs' book on, I think it was Walter Isaacson wrote, and his name came up. And he had been fired from the 3 main companies that Steve started. And he's a really good A player, but I guess Steve and he didn't work well together. But Steve hired him every new company he started and fired him too, type thing. So I was asking Dave, he's got some great stories. I'll just leave it at that. But this is one of the things that's so easy to kind of go a little bit cheap on this. And if you're doing something you're passionate about and you really want to make a difference, nobody created anything good alone. You've got to have some really good people. But we've got this passion, we've got an A team, and you build one heck of a business, Randy. And one of the things I know you're passionate about, and we've talked about this, is the client/customer experience. And give a little bit of your thoughts on that, because I think this is really helpful for all of us. Is with everything changing so much, we kind of think we've got to be novel on everything, and we can miss what's important.
Well, I think, like I mentioned to you at one point, we spend a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to worrying about where things are going and what's changing and how do we keep up with change. And I saw an interview with Jeff Bezos one time who's a pretty successful entrepreneur.
For the one person out of the 10,000 plus listening to CEO of Amazon. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, and he said what he focuses on is what's not going to change. 5 years from now, people are still going to want value, and they're still going to want good customer service. And so I really took that to heart. It makes a lot of sense. We've always ran our business based on the golden rule, and it's a bit cliche, but it's true. If you treat other people the way you want to be treated, generally you're going to be better off. So we put a lot of energy and resources into building a really excellent customer service team, 24/7 live calls. All of our operators are local or domestic and very knowledgeable, and just do everything we can to try to improve that customer experience. And now with so many different companies getting into the home delivery food business, it's more critical than ever. We have to differentiate ourselves, and that's one area that that we have under our control. We can take really great care of our customers, and it's paid off. We have an industry-leading retention rate among our customers, and
one of the things, Randy, it's really interesting because more recently, one of my businesses, I have a membership program, and we're doing the pro formas, and I'm a big, I've always been a financial guy, so everything I do, we pro forma out and see it's a rational decision. And one of the things that just shocked me that I didn't realize the monthly retention of a monthly membership program for my business, let's say 1,000 members at $400 a month. The difference between, classically, most businesses keep them for 3 or 4 months, and huge, lose a third a month. We're looking at, well, we can do better, and the difference between somewhere between 10 and 5%. Well, that difference in in a 2-year ramp up of the business made a difference between $4 to $6 million of EBITDA, and really probably if we were to sell the business, at least $10 million of difference. And it's like, okay, should I have that one extra client service experience, person doing the call, as you're saying? And we lose sight of this. Forget about if you're not going to take good care of your clients, which you should, or your customers. But the lifetime value, and with the competition, this is huge.
Oh, it's so true. In fact, we just did a in-depth lifetime value assessment of our customer base, and what we discovered, it was the first time we've done it in a few years, and what we discovered was, we have customers that ordered from us as many as 100 times. But what we discovered is when somebody has ordered from us 5 times, generally they're not going anywhere. They're comfortable and satisfied, and we don't really need to be spending a lot of money advertising to those people. We can take what we had been directing, trying to advertise to them and get more people in the door in the first place.
Well, there's a new book out called Retention Point, a guy, Robert Scope, and I thought it was really interesting. It's an hour read, so no excuse for not reading it, but it's saying exactly what you're saying. He was studying all membership programs, and once you got to a point where they were a client, there was a 70% chance you were going to keep them for the rest of their life. But until we get people used to using our solutions successfully and get the results they want, they're at high risk. And, investing the time up front, it doesn't mean if they reach that point, you ignore them, but it's a different service level because, there's a huge difference of value with somebody that's ordered 100 times from you in that first order type thing.
That's right. Well, and we know that it's way cheaper to keep someone than to go out and try to find a new customer.
And well, that's said so often, Randy, but the reality is it is. Acquisition costs are so high anymore with all the noise in the marketplace. Yeah, there's cheaper ways over the internet to get out there and everything else, but you and I are not the only ones that know that. And so, rising above, and I want to go to, because I think this is one, you're a soft-spoken guy. When we first met, there are guys in our mastermind groups that are loud because it's a marketing group, some very loud, but what you come across, you walk the talk, the integrity, the authenticity, and you bring that into your business. And I want people to our fellow entrepreneurs to understand the importance of that, because when you're fighting the noise, you can shout louder, that maybe get that one client. But if you want to have that long-term experience, that integrity and authenticity is just so powerful that you're doing.
Well, I don't, I think people have integrity or they don't. I don't know that you can fake it. A lot of people try. In my industry in particular, there's just a tremendous amount of fraud, bait and switch. It's easy. People don't know. Just take farm versus wild salmon. Most people can't tell the difference. And as you were saying earlier, a lot more people now understand there is a difference, and they ask for wild, but they honestly really often don't know if they're getting it or not. I personally experienced this countless times. And so what we try to do is be that reliable solution. You're definitely going to get what you're paying for when you shop with us. And I am very fortunate that I came from the industry. I spent 20 years there catching these things. So I know the industry, I know the fish sort of intimately, if you will. And I think that's one advantage. It's one thing that sets us apart from buying your salmon on Amazon.
Yeah, no, it's And none of us like to be taken advantage. I mean, I was sharing
That's right.
before we turned on the camera, a very high-end restaurant in my little community that, unfortunately, a great guy. I'd count him as a friend, and he made a very big mistake. They were having a hard time getting one kind of fish, high end. I don't want to give too much because then you can search on Google and find him. But then he went ahead and did a cheaper fish. And, he probably saved over a course of a year that supposedly did it about $30,000, maybe a little more than that. The local county's health came in and fined him $100,000, which, not insignificant for a restaurant. But the publicity that he got out of that probably cost him a couple $1 million because he had multiple restaurants in our town.
And his reputation forever, right? I mean, you just can't recover from that.
I would say that he's almost recovered now 3 years later, and had he not made a lot of money beforehand, he went through savings and, all kinds of employee turnover and family issues. And, this is, even if you're not moral, you should be, because the pain of not doing it, you're getting caught is high, and then you can't remember what you said. Just do the right thing. I've always,
Well, so I can understand it, how a lot of people can get in a really tight position where they've got a lot of customers. Their customers want their fish, and if nature decides not to produce the fish that year, or the boat that was going to deliver them sinks or breaks down or whatever, there's just all kinds of reasons that the supply could be interrupted. And if less scrupulous people can go buy something that looks just like it somewhere else, they do.
Well, and I mean, you were telling me the story on the sushi, which the different types.
Yes.
And why don't you share that story? Because I think this authenticity, I can see somebody being upset. You have a restaurant. My wife likes only one kind of fish, and if they didn't have the fish, she would be very disappointed. On the other hand, she would appreciate the fellow saying, you know what, the boat burned down. The guy I have the contract, whatever happened, and the government tightened down, whatever it is. Versus learning later that she had been tricked, that she thought she was eating this and wasn't. I mean, it just, so, and then, we're talking about fish, but this is in every walk of life, this happens.
John, I have one of my closest friends who, got a retirement settlement, or he had a windfall of some sort, and he gave it to a local financial advisor who, to make a long story short, basically robbed him, and he lost it. There are bad actors in every sector, as we all know. And it really,
most of them are pretenders, so they're just giving bad advice.
Yes,
but there's the exploiters, in every single industry, and we've got to be careful of both type.
That's right. So, it always comes down to, finding people you can trust, and most people are so happy to do that once they do find you, and whether you're a plumber or a electrician or a financial advisor or a fisherman, whatever, people are going to stick with you.
Well, I've got a fairly large place and multiple businesses, and I tell you, when I find somebody's good, I don't want them ever to leave, type thing. And as long as they're reasonably fair and equitable,
mind, when you get somebody that you can trust,
yeah. Well, enough said on that, but make sure we're all doing it. And then I just want to come back to health, because one of the things that is so important, and this is, I look at it also on the financial side because of my background. We get caught up in getting basis points, little increases in return, and save a little in taxes here, and all esoteric. But what's important to all of us as entrepreneurs is the people we love, the causes we care about, and making a difference in the world. Well, finance is one, but I think even more important is health. And you've made that one of your passions, and really one of the reasons you do what you do.
Oh, it's so true. As I said, when I started the company, I didn't really know what an omega-3 was, the difference between fat and every other part of the fish. But I've had just a major education in the last 17 years. And For those of you, your listeners who are familiar with the Colby scoring system, I'm a number 9 fact finder. Basically, that means I will turn.
Well, that's very unusual for most entrepreneurs. A lot of quick starter 9s, but not too many fact finders.
Will turn over every rock to get to the facts and the truth. And there's so much BS out there, and especially when it comes to seafood. I mean, I could just tell you so many stories about all the baiting and switching and the myths and the misinformation but one of the things I've learned, I mean, I've gone to a lot of scientific conferences, nutrition conferences, spoke to some of my closest friends are now leading, nutrition scientists. And so I really feel like I have got to the bottom of and understand pretty well, almost on a molecular level, the nutrients that are in seafood and wild salmon. And what very few people understand is that every single cell in our body, in our heart tissue or muscle tissue or fat, our brains, our eyes, every single cell in our body has a lipid membrane that requires these omega-3 fats. And 99% of people in this country are deficient in them. And because every cell in our body needs them, that when you are deficient, it can manifest itself in dozens of different diseases. This National Academy of Science identified, this was several years ago, 60 different chronic conditions linked to omega-3 fatty acid deficiency. So when I learned that I'm selling this fish that is one of the richest sources of that, I did get excited about it. And I have focused on sort of the health aspect of the food that we sell. Our friend Joe Polish says, backing up just a second, people will look at our website, they'll look at these fish, the seafood we're selling, and they'll say, oh, it looks kind of expensive to me. And as Joe says, he tells a story of the $1 million racehorse. If you had a $1 million racehorse, what would you feed it? Well, you would feed it the best possible diet that you could feed it. And money would be no expense. And we are all $1 million racehorses, and we all need to be healthy because we're all running this race that we're running. And so when you look at high quality seafood, the products that we're selling, they're probably one of the best values in food.
I'm gonna just flash on the screen. That salmon looks awful good too.
Well, I'm not just saying that because I sell this. I mean, we have lots of customers. I'm not here trying to pitch my.
Yeah.
I love to get more customers like everybody would, but really, I'm just so passionate about it because I've seen it make such a difference in so many people's lives, including people very close to me that had been diagnosed for years with chronic or genetic conditions, and they kept getting prescriptions for drugs and creams and different topical solutions to mask the symptoms. Mm-hmm. When I started learning more about this whole concept of the omega-3 and omega-6 ratio, and we don't have time to go into it all today, but when I learned about that and started applying it in my own family, they're just incredible differences. And there's very clear biological mechanisms that are going on there. But, sickness is so profitable. And there are just so many vested interests in the status quo. It's almost impossible to get policy to reflect the science. We're seeing that now more than ever, probably. But anyway, I'm just passionate about sharing that because there's nothing better than helping somebody get over something.
Well, and Randy, why don't you help us, how, if they do want to get started with you, and I'm going to put up the website, what's the best way to get started? Not only, because, what I look at this is it's not only, the great food, but really getting your great client experience and seeing how another fellow entrepreneur is building a very successful business. But how would they get started best?
Well, thanks, John. Probably the easiest way is just go to vitalchoice.com. And you will see a Vital box in that top menu. And basically that's just a subscription program where you can pick. The only choice you have to make is between one of the 3 different types of offerings we have. One was just a salmon box, one is a salmon and whitefish box, and one is a salmon, whitefish, and shellfish, and they're all fantastic. And we developed this actually based on a conversation I had at one of our Genius Network meetings where somebody told me that they came to our website and they were just overwhelmed with all the choices, and they just wanted me to send them some fish. So we put together these 3 boxes, and that's what we'll do. It's just super simple. And the thing is that once you have a chance to try it, you can figure out what you like. Maybe you don't like as much, you want more of something or other. We can customize it going forward. But that's the easiest way, I think, for us to introduce what we do, our products and our services to your community.
No, I appreciate it, Randy, and it's I can tell everybody that it is phenomenal, and you don't want to miss it. But let me wrap up here real quick on kind of what are the key takeaways from this, and there's some good ones. Sometimes we get caught up that, geez, is there anything new? There isn't a lot new. It's doing the right thing at the right time, and being passionate. Let's pick businesses that we're really passionate. If we're not, we can pivot, we can sell, we can, but life's too short. Let's do something that we really are making a difference, that we care about. Second, surround yourself with A players. I mean, there was a time where we were doing factory work, everybody, that maybe some B players would be okay. But so many of us are in some type of knowledge type business and differentiating. You got to have A players. The quality of life that you get to have by having great people is just phenomenal. Customer, client experience, as Randy said. I mean, this is the easiest one to drop, and the lifetime value of clients is huge, and you don't want to. You have to do that well. That's kind of, to me, table stakes. You got to nail the client experience. Integrity and authenticity. I mean, I think Randy's a great example of that. And this is something that it's, again, easy not to do, and you can get a pretty quick start. But we've all seen businesses, maybe some of ours, that have burned out because they weren't that. So, we're in it for the long haul. And then health. It's funny. I don't think I ever heard the racehorse analogy from Joe, being in his mastermind for 9 years. But I think that's, you got $1 million, most of us, our largest capital asset, if we could reflect it on a net worth statement, is our own human capital. And, just going out and eating junk food all the time is just crazy. And then, Randy, the salmon just tastes so damn good too. But I want to thank you very much for sharing your insights and making a difference. asnation.com, go. Well, the links to Randy's site and transcript, show notes, and that type of thing. In the meantime, go out and make a difference. Your clients, your future clients, customers, they're all counting on you. Don't let them down. We wish you the best of success.
Thank you.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. AESnation.com.